Achieving a nice blue sky in your photographs. Hey everyone, welcome to Keep Shooting Monday number 112. My name is Greg Cazillo from Cazillo.com. First, the big news out is the leaked photos of the Nikon D5. Rumored specs include a 20 megapixel sensor, native ISO of 102,000, 153 focus points, and I really hope that all the focus points are distributed across the whole image instead of just in the center or the whole viewfinder, I guess the word is, instead of just in the middle. As I've talked about before, there has to be some kind of a technical limitation that prevents companies from doing that. And I'm hoping that they finally either worked around it or did something or just doing it, because it's a huge limitation in my mind. I would definitely jump on if they finally got around that. Another rumor is dropping the XQD slot in favor of two CF slots. Back to that, because the D3 series, D3, D3S, D3X also had two CF slots. They also moved the ISO button to the top next to the shutter, and moved the mode button to the top on the left, which is interesting, and I actually like that. I found myself lately getting confused between my different camera models and forgetting where my ISO button is. And having a little bit quicker access to that ISO for me is a better way to go. I prefer to never shoot auto ISO. I've made videos on it. I've never been a proponent of auto ISO. I think it's stupid. I think it's just a lazy man's way to go. But I think it's a good choice. You know, we're going to use the mode button less, and in my opinion anyway, that ISO button more, especially if you're shooting in manual. So I think that would be a good way to go. Also, at 20 megapixel, I see no reason why they wouldn't have a 4K shooting for video, which is excellent. So we will all see. I'm sure it'll be coming out sometime next year. So Nikon also updated their wireless transmitter app, the Camera Control Pro and Message Center. They finally are supporting El Capitan on the Mac, and so you can upgrade to that. I don't know why people ever installed the Message Center. It just seems like another app that just wasted, it just takes up space and just whatever. You know, you never see any messages come across. It's not, you know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't tell you about like firmware updates on your camera. I don't know. It just seems like a waste. So I just never touched it. Another news, you can get Lightroom Mobile for free now on Android. From what I can tell, it is free to use, but if you did want to sync your photos back to Lightroom on the desktop, you will have to get the CC, the Creative Cloud subscription, in order to do that. There are a number of places out there that you can get it a little bit cheaper, especially during the holidays right now. So if you've thought about it, you're putting it off, spend the $10. You get the latest version of Lightroom and the latest version of Photoshop. It's a really good deal for less than $10 a month. And it's a great way to go. Plus, you get a bunch of storage and that kind of thing. Lightroom syncing, I think all that stuff is definitely worthwhile doing it. I actually have the full membership at $49 or $50 a month, whatever it is, because I do a lot of editing with After Effects and Premiere, and I use Illustrator, I use InDesign, obviously I use Photoshop and Lightroom, so it makes sense to me to go the whole route and have the whole package, so that's what I do. Something else that happened this week is Google Photos. They released an update to their Photos app. I guess back in the day it used to be Picasa. Now it's migrated to Google Photos, where you can set up a single shared album to family or friends. Basically, what's going to happen with that is if you share an album to them, then they can add some of their photos to that album. So if it was, say, for Christmas time, or a family get together, whatever it may be, they allow you to then, so you share that album over the other person, so everybody can see everybody's photos. I love the fact I think it would be really great, especially if some of the people don't have Apple devices. You know, like you could use iCloud photo sharing, which does basically the same thing, but you're not able to, you know, if you don't have an iOS device or if you don't have a Mac, you're not going to be able to see those photos. But I think it'll work really, really well to be able to share that. I think it's a nice option for people to be able to share photos and share them outside, share them inside. One of the cool thing is that you can upload unlimited numbers of photos in high res up to 16 megapixels for free. Um, which once again, that's a great option. They're using up their storage. They're not gonna. I don't think they keep the original file that you upload. So you obviously you want to keep your originals, but it's a pretty good option if you just use your, say, your cell phone backup, something like that. You know, on Android, it'll give you a nice backup, or obviously you can on iOS. You already have your photos backup to iCloud Photos, but I think it'll be a good way to go. Um, and if you needed to print something, there you have a high enough resolution to print from. If the family wanted to print, you know, or say you have one printer in between the family, in the whole family, or the whole group, you can upload a high res photo and then print from that. I think that would be a really good option to go with. So another interesting article, Petapixel wrote an article about the pros and cons, and some myths of DNG, and had some comments on this one. As far as using DNG, I think it's a very individual choice whether you use it or not. Um, Personally, I use it for events because I want to save some space in my archive. So if I have a large event where I shoot, you know, 1,000, 1,500 photos, like a race or, you know, some kind of an event where it's not the end of the world. You know, I want to keep all of my photos, but if something happens in 10 years, people aren't going to come back to me and want that photo, you know? So I think that's a good way to go, and it saves and ends up saving space. So that's what I do. I go into Lightroom and I select all the photos, and then I just do convert to DNG, and it'll delete the originals once it's done, and I just back those up, and that's it, or duplicate those into my other archive disks. So some good stuff about it is compression, so you can make the file smaller. It is an open format, so other companies can use it and embed it into their programs if they want to. There's a lot of camera manufacturers that support it and use it natively out of their cameras, which is a good thing. There's also validation to make sure that file is actually original, that it is the right file, that it hasn't changed, or your backups or something like that hasn't corrupted it in some way. So that's good. You do get a little bit faster performance because you can download a larger preview file or embed a larger preview file inside of that DNG, which will allow programs to access it a little bit quicker. Also, you can merge HDR files into a single DNG, which is also nice. Or merge a couple of files to make an HDR, so you can get a much wider range image, and so that's a cool option. Cons: not all programs support it. So I'm sure there's plenty of programs out there, which I'm in the Adobe land. I stay inside of that pretty much exclusively. So there's probably a lot of programs that just do not support it. You're not going to be able to open it and use that. There is a free converter though, which would give you that option. Um, Other cons would be conversion time, especially if you have a slower computer. Also, they have different versions of their spec. Obviously, if you're using an Adobe program, they're going to open the older versions, and then you can update to the newer spec. But you do need to make sure that realize that there's Adobe, DNG1, DNG2, DNG3. There's a new spec for pretty much each version of Lightroom. There's going to be a new spec, or Adobe Camera Raw. There's a new spec for the updated DNG. So you just need to keep that in mind. So basically, if you're going to use it, it does require a little bit more work in order to manage your archive. If you have a lot of photos, then it's up to you. Do you want to spend time thinking about that and working with that? My experience with old raw files is that over time, it is very, very possible that your raw files cannot be opened by new software. So any of the any apps, any of the DSLRs, even way back to, like I had old D100s, D200s, even my really old Kodak DCX cameras, they're still supported natively in the newest version of Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw, so I don't have any issues there. But if you're talking really old cameras from, the mid to late 90s, with backs, that kind of thing, where you would take a film camera and put a back on it, those cameras are going to have issues, and you're not going to be able to open up a RAW file at all unless you have really old software and a computer to support that software. I actually used to work for a studio where they had an old G3 sitting around, a Mac G3 sitting around, just to be able to open some of those super old archived files that you could not open in any new software, because it would the particular software that would open those files would only run on Mac OS 9. It wouldn't even run on 10. It wouldn't run on 10. It wouldn't run on any of them. So that's obviously an issue. Luckily, in the age of the DSLRs, we're pretty consistent. But hey, you want to check. If you've been shooting digital for 10 years, you know what I mean? Like I have, or longer, you need to be checking those archives. Every new software program, make sure that your files can be opened. Make sure that there's no issues there. Last thing I wanted to mention is one of the issues inside of that DNG format, or one of the myths, is that it automatically applies a color profile, and it doesn't apply a color profile. And there's actually a difference between a color profile and a camera profile. A color profile is a bucket basically all of your data, all of your color data has to fit within that bucket, and that's it. A camera profile is the one that basically says, okay, these colors should look like this. And so it's a little bit different. A RAW file actually does not have a color profile at all until you export it into a PSD or a TIFF or a JPEG. Even a PNG can support a color profile. So there are no color profiles there, although you can apply it for a DNG. It will automatically add a camera profile, and that camera profile then basically just it's a profile that's made by Adobe to say, okay, this particular camera should look like this to get it the most accurate as you saw it on the back of your camera. So that's what that camera profile is for and what it does. You can, though, change it if you want to. Something else I wanted to talk about, again, Adobe-centric, is some issues that I noticed. I think it was last week I talked about the Adobe Lightroom web interface that came up, where they made it so that you can now edit RAW files and upload RAW files directly to the web interface. They get downloaded into Lightroom on the desktop, which is a really nice option if for some reason you don't have your mobile device, or maybe your mobile device is full, you don't have space to copy those files over, whatever the reason may be. So, and actually, if you think about it, the iPad, it's very difficult to get a RAW file onto that device, even though Apple finally did allow the camera download dongles in the new iOS 9. This week, actually, they released the USB dongle, so you can connect your camera directly to your iPad or iPhone and copy photos over. But if you don't spend $30 for that device, then you're not going to be able to do it. Anyway, issues that I saw in there. Number one, there's no way to search for anything, and that drives me crazy. If you can't just search or show a single file, it's really annoying. You also can't send a link to a single image. So if you wanted to show a single image to a client, you can't say, okay, here's a link to image number 30. There's no way to do that. There's no way to send that link to that single file. You can't see a list of all the comments. So if you wanted to see, say the client put up 10 comments about 10 different pictures, but you had sent them 50 pictures, you have to go through every single image to look at those comments. You can't just view a list of all of them at once. So that's pretty annoying. There's no way to also go back a little bit. You can't find an image from the desktop in the Flickr gallery or in the Lightroom Web Gallery. Flickr, if you upload photos to their service, you can then right-click on that photo and it will give you the actual Flickr link or open it directly, which is great. Gives you that option. You could send that link out, whatever, to that single image. You can't do that inside of Lightroom Web. Another thing that is really annoying to me is there's no way to show my file names. I'm super particular and anal about my file names. And if I'm going to send a list of images to a client, the only numbering system is the sequential number, basically the pagination inside of that group of images. So if you upload 50 images, you have image number 1 of 50, number 2 of 50, number 3 of 50, number 4 of 50. That's it. There's no way to see that my actual image number that you are referencing is number 30 or number 692 or whatever. And that's super annoying. There should be some kind of an option in order to show that. And all of those things prevent me from using this and using this professionally and for my clients on a regular basis. Without these couple of things, which seem stupid, but they should be pretty darn easy to add, especially if they added raw file editing in the browser. They should be very easily be able to add these couple of things, and then I think it'll be much closer to be able to use this kind of a platform to collaborate with a client. So hopefully they will get those things changed and edited and updated. And it's great to have these big banner features, but if you don't have the default small features, it just doesn't do you any good. You know what I mean? This is a platform for me to use, and that's it. If I really need it to show a client to a client here or there, or if I needed them on some photos from my on my tablet or something like that, or my phone, if I needed it last minute and I wasn't in front of my desktop, those are going to be the times when I'm going to use it, and that's it. But it's definitely not something that I can't live without right now. And so you still have to have another platform in order to do these last few things, like collaborating for clients. And that's just, hopefully they'll address these things very soon. So I have a couple of questions about how to get a blue sky and also monitors. Somebody asked me about desktop monitors. If I get a proper exposure on my person/subject, the sky starts turning out a pale blue. So as you can see, this is a little bit longer question that Jerry had posted. So I thought I'd talk about little bits and pieces of this. The first thing, he's obviously working outside. He had this test photo that he had posted, and so he was just figuring it out, setting his camera on probably a timer, walking in front of it, hopefully in the same spot every time. So that's a good thing to do, to figure out how your flash works, and especially with regards to your shutter speed, that kind of thing, especially when you're just working with flash. And so first time you're working with it, it's a good idea to start practicing with it rather than just going out and kind of throwing yourself to the wolves and then end up screwing it up. So recommend that to anyone. So that's first. Next thing is he is standing in the shade, which is going to prevent him from getting any kind of a decent blue sky, because the background is so much brighter, probably 2.5, 3 stops brighter, which is going to automatically make that sky very light blue. In order to get a darker blue sky, you would need to move the subject out of the shade into the sun. Then you are going to need to use the high-speed shutter sync like you talked about, and basically what I recommend is turn off the flash first. Start with the flash off, get a good exposure, get your background how you want it, And by the way, you need to be pointing away from the sun. You know, if you are shooting towards the sun with the subject in between the camera and the sun, you are never going to get a super deep blue sky unless you go with a really high shutter speed, which is, or, you know, very basically underexposing the entire scene, which is then definitely not going to give you any kind of a decent exposure on the person's face. So, in order to fix this, start out, set up your tripod, face away from the sun so that the sun's at your back, or maybe to the, you know, to one side, however you want to do it. Maybe it's on a little bit cloudier day, something like that, where the sun is in and out, something like that that might help you. Anyway, sun at your back, shoot the other way. That's gonna be step one. Step two, get your good basic exposure. Figure out how you want it to look. Set your low ISO, probably 100, 200, maybe 400 at the very highest. Okay. Then you're gonna need to probably go to, you know, Sunny 16 rule. Back to that. You know, ISO 100 or 200, f16 at you know, 1/125th of a second is probably a good starting point. Figure out what that is, get a nice blue sky, then turn your flash on, move it in kind of close. You're probably going to need to use full power, especially if you're using any kind of a softbox or a umbrella, anything like that, any kind of a modifier. You're going to need to have as much power as possible. So it's going to need to be close to the subject, and it's going to need to be high power. Now, I say manual mode with the flash. That's super important so that you know that you're going to get a consistent exposure. If you're shooting with TTL, it's going to vary from shot to shot. You don't want that just when you're first learning. It's much better to set it off in manual to figure out how it's working, what it's doing, and so that's going to be the way to go there. So try those couple of steps and think about what's going on. You know, basically in this photo here, you're exposing for that foreground, which is already 3, maybe even 4 stops underexposed. In the background of difference, I should say, the ratio in between the background to the foreground, and so that's why you're going to get that pale blue in the sky. So think about that. Start off with setting your exposure first. Question from Algie. I'll be building a new dual monitor workstation soon, strictly for CAD, solid modeling, and photography. What monitors are you using in your setup? Any recommendations for the best moderately priced monitors for photography use? Looking for 23-inch or 24-inch monitors. Personally, I've never seen the advantages of going with the super high-end monitors, and I've never really been in a position where I could buy the super high-end monitors that are, you know, $1,000, $1,500, like the Cazillo ones or the super high-end NECs. I just haven't. It's just been times when I needed to buy them or one stopped working. I just haven't been able to spend the money, or, you know, basically say, yeah, let's do it, and, you know, let's spend a ton of money on the monitors. The other thing is that I want to be able to have 2 monitors that are the same. So that means not am I spending, you know, I'd be spending, you know, $3,000 on a monitor, and I just find it hard to kind of wrap my head around that and to spend all that money on a monitor. When I had bought these were about I think about $250. Now they're down to about 220 or so on Amazon, 210 on Amazon. They're Asus PB238Q monitors, 1920 by 1080 resolution. They're LED panels, which is a good thing. The IPS display type, basically that gives you better color reproduction and also better viewing angles. So basically, when I'm viewing this monitor at this farther angle over here, I don't see the colors be looking weird. Whereas if you take your laptop, especially older ones, and you view them like from the top, less so from the left and the right, but more from the top, the colors look weird and the whole monitor kind of looks weird. So that's what happens with an IPS panel. You get that better color reproduction and better viewing angles. It's a newer technology. Just about every monitor out there is going to be IPS, but you still want to stick with those IPS ones. Connection options: HDMI, DisplayPort, DVI, and also D-sub, which is good. And it also has 4 USB ports and some low quality speakers, only like 2 watts or something like that. They would work in a pinch if you had nothing else. So, you know, it gives you something anyway. It does have a full sRGB color space display, 100%, which is a step in the right direction. But obviously, everyone wants to hit that 100% or 98%, 99% of Adobe 98, or Adobe RGB. Much wider color gamut. It will display a lot more colors. But once again, you know, I'm printing here in house. I've never really seen that advantage. Even when I'm printing just for any kind of photo printing, you know, you're really not going to get that much more color. Or you know, I'm just not doing that super high level of retouching to be able to really spend that extra money. Yeah, the printers might have a little bit wider gamut than sRGB, which is great. But you know, I'm printing right out of Lightroom, which is going to give me the best that I can get anyway. So I don't know. I just, again, it's a matter of can you spend the money, and do you really need it? I'd rather spend the money on other equipment or the computer itself to be able to handle stuff. Not only do you need the decent monitor, you also need a decent graphics card. The graphics card needs to be able to support the 10-bit, 12-bit, 14-bit, maybe 16-bit color. So those then you got to spend an extra $300, $400, $500 on a decent video card. So all those things come into play. Or does your current system even support a high-end video card? So all those things you need to really think about. Some other things that I liked about these monitors that they have very tall stands. I actually have them lowered because I have them sitting on this shelf right here, which I got the little drawers and just to make it a little bit nicer. But they have nice tall stands. They do also swivel, which is nice. A turn. They have a nice angle, and you can also turn them to 90 degrees, which I'm not going to do. But you can very easily turn them to 90 degrees if you're working on vertical documents or something where it'd be easier to work it vertically. And then inside of Windows, you can very easily switch them to the vertical display rather than horizontal display. I don't know how easy it is to do inside of the Mac. I never hooked up a vertical display on my Mac, so I'm not sure if you can do that or not. I'm sure there's some way to do it, but you know, I've never tried to tell you whether it's going to work or not. Also, they're really nice VESA mount for stands. If you did have a larger display or multiple monitors and you wanted to put like mounted somewhere on the desk rather than using the original stands, you can use that VESA mount, and that's the standard, basically, certain 75 millimeter, 100 millimeter, and I forget what the other dimensions are. But any of your VESA mount stands will be you can hook it up to very easily. On Amazon, it does have 4.5 stars, so I'm happy with that. But like I said, I hadn't spent, total it was probably close to $500. That was still a decent amount of money, to spend on a couple of monitors. But again, I needed 2, so maybe someday it's one of those things that you can invest in. But there's other things that I need to invest in right now rather than monitors. Like the computer that it was running on, especially since, like I talked about last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, that my old server motherboard went, so I had to upgrade a bunch of other stuff, and that I spent, $1,300, $1,400, whatever it was. So all that stuff just adds up and adds up and adds up, and if you're not making money from it, it's a little bit harder to say, yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? So hopefully that helps a little bit. Any comments, questions? I'd love to hear any of them. Obviously, keep the questions coming for next week's show. And that's it for Keep Shooting Monday, number 112, I think it was. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting.